was a pretty good kid, National Honor Society straight A student, and then I turned 18. And then I decided to go on my own and make my own choices and live my own ways and do my own things, but that's fine. There's consequences, and like Rick said, you don't even have a clue of the spiritual battle that's going behind scenes. You know, you might see stuff up front, but you don't, until you really open your eyes and your mind, God shows you that, you have no idea of the spiritual warfare that's going on behind you. So I was exposed to a lot of stuff, and around that time, God brought my husband into my life, and he brought me back on ground and set me on ground where I was spiraling out of control, but I was still running, still wanting to do my own thing. And about that time, I had answered an ad in the paper. It was a Kirby ad, and I met Reggie Robertson, which was a big changing point in my life. He was an awesome salesman. He could sell you a Kirby for $5,000 if you wanted to, but he was a Kirby salesman. He was a distributor, but he started selling belief in people. That age, education, race didn't matter. You could do whatever you wanted to. If you were positive, you kept going and you kept putting forth effort and stuff, that nothing would hold you back. So I was with them for a couple of years, and I was actually going to be promoted to open my area distributorship. I was going to be the first female in the company of Kirby to open her office before she was 21. So I was going to turn 21 to September 21st, and September 11th of 2000, me and my crew had went to New Mexico, and so we're on our way back. And I guess I lost focus of the road, and I missed a curve, and our car rolled over 7 times. So right before I was going to open it up, I got in this car wreck, and that's where I want to say that Micah 7:7 said there is power. It says there is power in persistent prayer. You know, there's power in prayer, but it says there is power in persistent prayer. And I remember my dad saying, you know, through the recovery, so my dad's saying, you know, I pray for you every day. Pray that God bring her back, protect her, God bring her back, you know. And most people don't realize that there's power in prayer and faith, and that we can have power and faith for other people. We can stand in the gap, just like in Luke 8, Jairus, I think, where the synagogue leader, his 12-year-old daughter was dying, so he put forth effort and went to go find Jesus and tell him. He stood in that gap, and then they come to him and say, she's dead. You don't even bother him anymore. She's already dead. But God said, just believe. Just believe, and she's healed. And that's what my parents did, just believe, you know. So they don't just, oh, well, you know, that's what she chose, and, you know, I know she believes, so she'll be in heaven. No, they kept fighting and stuff. So anyways, I was in the accident, and it was a rollover, so I might get emotional, but Sonny Silva's passed on the scene, and me, Chella Gonzalez, and Jeffrey Perry were airlifted to Lubbock, and they pretty much gave my parents the report that Jeffrey was okay. He was having some recovery, but he was actually in the military, and they taught him to jump out of the car instead of staying in there in a collision, so he didn't get the full impact of it. But they told my parents, you know, they're brain dead. They're only not alive because they're on this life support machine. So if they make it the next couple of days, the best scenario you've got going is they'll be vegetables. You'll have to get someone to care for them, get the bedding and stuff like that. And so at that point, Chella's parents knew that she wouldn't want to live that way. So they went on ahead and pulled the plug, I believe, the first night. And well, by law, when you pull the plug, if the people try to breathe on their own, technically they're alive, so they got to plug them back in. So they pulled the plug on her, and she didn't breathe, so she passed that first night. And my parents decided to pray. They decided to pray for 3 days. They got the church together. They had people coming in and out of my room. And think for nonstop, for 3 days, there was somebody in there nonstop, you know. And they called on people, and when I got out, people I didn't even know, they were like, man, we had our whole church praying for you. Just like when they were building in Genesis, the Tower of Babel, God, at that point, God separated them. He said, man, when they all come together, you don't have to be Christian or anything. When people come together, there's nothing they can't accomplish. So, my dad knew that, and got people together, and that power started, praying for me. Anyways, when they pulled the plug, I gasped for air on my own. So they plugged me back up, and then my parents started the battle, because that's exactly what it was. It was there was spiritual warfare going on there, And, there's no physician that they had the reports of the physician. I remember some of the doctors weren't saved, and this is what it is, and, but no one's got the last word except for the living word. And when you plant your feet on that, you can overcome anything, That's what my parents planted on, and I'm grateful for them, because they didn't put on the stuff after. They prepared themselves just in case an attack came on their kids or whatever, and they were able to go to war. And that's what we need to do. I mean, that after, I don't realize it going through it, but now that I'm a mother, and now that I can reflect back that stuff and see my kids and stuff like that, God puts the puzzle pieces together, and you gotta know. You gotta know, it's laid out for us, how the enemy's gonna attack, his moves, and that's what it is. My dad knew that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and 1 John 3:8 says the Son of God was manifested that he might destroy the works of the devil. So he knew the will of God, and he started praying that you came to give her life, you came to heal, you came to restore, and I'm not halfway, you restore fully, figuring out when you need to be done. And that's where, it talks about girding your waist with truth and picking up the sword of the word, because that's what it was. There were spirits in there that my mom said were trying to come, bring me down and bring them down. And so I'm definitely grateful for their sacrifices and their choices, because they sacrificed their own ways and their own desires to come up in the word so that they could lead us into the word, which goes back down to my grandfather and all that stuff. You're grateful for that. And it opens my eyes to how important we are as parents to our kids, because I feel like that is our first ministry. We can't lose sight of that. You got to be ready to go to war, because the Satan's going to get you right where it hurts the most, and that's right there with your baby. So I definitely feel, and my part as a parent, but I'm asking God to show me and to change me. And I'm just grateful for everything that they did, for their knowledge, for being able to pray for me and stand in the gap during that time. And I'm grateful that God restored me. There's many testimonies in my life of overcoming and God opening doors. And just like that song says, he's a way maker, a miracle worker. Even though you don't see me, I'm working. Even though you can't feel me, I'm working. I never stop. I never stop working. And the word's alive. They always say, oh, it's alive. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, it was written 2,000 years ago, yeah, it's alive, But it's alive, and it's there, and there's truth, and there's promises, and there's firm foundations with building your life on. And it's worth spending time and effort and reading his word and getting to know his promises. And that's my testimony of that part of my life. There's many, but that's definitely the turning and just you're not, amazing things, we're not limited to the things of this earth. We are opened up, and we're entitled to call upon supernatural hidden abilities. As Jeremiah 33:3 says, call me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. The doctors do not know how my brain just reconnected and I'm walking and how I had a baby, and they don't know how, Miss Sarah Spencer's heart might shrink back. They don't know because he's going to show you greater things than we have capability of understanding. So
Amen.
that was the ministry I got to that, and thank you guys.